Hello and welcome. I'm delighted to have you join us today for this online discussion about Imaginary Youth, a powerful documentary directed by Ruxandra Gubernat. This screening is organized by KineDok, a community-driven platform dedicated to bringing creative documentaries closer to audiences across Europe. My name is Andra Mureșan. I'm a journalist based in Romania, and I'm truly excited to explore the many themes and stories that Imaginary Youth brings to light, together with our two wonderful guests, Ruxandra Gubernat, the director of the movie, and Hana Pribilincová. And let me briefly introduce them. Ruxandra Gubernat is a documentary filmmaker, visual artist, and researcher. She holds a PhD in political science from Université Paris Nanterre and currently lectures at the Faculty of Journalism at University of Bucharest. Ruxandra directed, as I've mentioned, Vis Viață, Imaginary Youth, an observational documentary following three Romanian teenagers navigating life in the social media era as they decide whether to leave their country after high school or not. Hana Pribilincová is a psychologist at IPSCO Slovakia, an online youth mental health counseling service where she works closely with young people and mental health professionals to provide accessible support and guidance. And first of all, thank you both so much for being here. It's wonderful to have you with us today and to be able to talk about this documentary. To start our discussion, and this goes to both of you, we often talk about Gen Z, but in a very limited manner because we rarely take the time to actually listen to them. And in Vis Viață, Imaginary Youth, Ruxandra, you give us a glimpse into their world and maybe also a piece of the puzzle that we've been missing. So my first question to both of you would be, what do you think people should keep in mind when watching this documentary, especially when it comes to understanding Gen Z better?
Can start. First of all, like one of the reasons for which I did imaginary use theater was to create conversations about what's happening to our society and to new generations that are coming of age, and they are coming of age in an era of chaos and a lot of instability. So that's the first thought with which I entered the process, and also probably the answer to your question, because I think like the first thing that comes to my mind is that even though the issues are similar to our generation, millennials, or the generations before, like we'll always have problems with school, with our parents, we will always want to revolt against society. The speed and the pace are totally different. The speed with which Gen Z are living life changed completely from my generation to this one. And the process of establishing identity is changing through the fact that you have social media as a companion, and also a means of expression with its downside. Uh, the time they have for themselves and we have for ourselves is different. And I was thinking that, like, when we started imaginary youth, my youth migration was a major issue, a major topic. Climate change was a major topic, and they still are. But like 1 year in the making, we had the global pandemic. 3 years in the making, or at the end of it, we're facing two wars that are changing the configuration of our society. So basically, also uh, we are changing the way we see the world and the space we have to inhabit this world. Uh, you see it also in the way I constructed imaginary thinking that it will reach a Gen Z public, or mainly a Gen Z public. Like the pace, the fast pace, and the fragmented reality. I was thinking about this illusion biographic, the biographic illusion that Bourdieu is talking about. The fact that we believe that our lives are coherent in sequential narratives, but in the end, I don't think the life we're living now allows us to keep that.
I will try to follow up. Firstly, thank you very much for having me here and to give bigger picture, also from the psychological point of view, and from the point of view that Gen Z are my clients right now. So we have the best experience with them. And when I read this question, three things came to my mind. We should look. We should look at understanding Gen Z. It's a lot about observation with curiosity for my generation. I'm from the boomers or boomers/millennials. I'm almost like the artifact in the museum with most of my age in my work. So try to look and leave our stereotypical thinking and presumptions on a leash while watching it. And for me, it wasn't that hard because it's my profession to understand, and I'm very open. But for some people, it could be really a challenge to understand and to see. So firstly, look and observe. Then listen and listen carefully. Our ears should be set on the listening mode. And not really guessing what will come, just to be open for pure comprehension. And when we don't understand, just play it once more and listen once again. That's what worked for me. And that's what works for me at my work, just to be reassured what that person meant by that, what facial expression he used, why it was like that. And then feel. So look, listen, feel. It's like the emergency training. It reminds the procedure of emergency training. Look, listen, feel. Because feeling is, from my point of view, it's like sensing emotional expressions and understanding. It's not about weeping. Like weeping in some satisfaction form that something didn't go well and we are making some proclamations and some shouting of the youths. It's I had feeling that in the film there's quite a rich demand of understanding, that youths in the film want to be understood in whole their context. So it's kind of call for understanding and for systematic change. So that's what was my impression. And I couldn't, if I look at it as the other person who is trapped in some patterns of grandparents, grandparents, I couldn't see it easily, but I think we should be really feeling what they are trying to say, how they behave. Yeah.
Because you both mentioned the difference between maybe your generation and Gen Z, I was also curious about this. For me, as someone from the older side of Gen Z, I was born in 1987. The documentary felt somehow both very familiar but also distant because I grew up in a small city in Romania and I kind of recognized that same sense of revolt that Steph had, for example. But for me, it was more silent because back then you didn't have the space to express it. So I'm curious how it felt for you, coming from other generations. What stood out to you about Gen Z while watching or working on this film for you, Ruxandra? And more broadly, what do you think truly sets Gen Z apart from millennials or boomers? I'm not really the biggest fan of the generation theory, and because I think that somehow it can put us in boxes, but at the same time, I feel like every generation has a specific way of reacting to the world.
Right? To start again. Well, I, before doing Imaginary Youth, I did actually a documentary on millennials contesting the political establishment. and the way my generation was engaging with Romanian society. And what I see as a difference between the two generations is the sense we have about ourselves, the way we perceive ourselves as individuals. And I feel like now, given the society is constructed as such that we become more and more atomized, the reaction is, okay, we are more individualistic. So I'm talking about Gen Z, but also about the other generations. But let's say Gen Z are more individualistic, but also with a higher self-awareness than millennials. Uh, I didn't interact, yeah, boomers as well. And what I'm hoping for is that this self-awareness will uh, help people come together stronger than the generation before. I mean, this is a time of preparation. This is a time of getting to know yourself as teenager or young adult in the making. But then you're self-aware. You know exactly what exactly. You know how you want to be in this society. And yeah, it is a very hard period for all of us. Society is not being kind to us, but you kind of realize how you want to move, and you will have the tools, with the self-awareness gathering, with the knowledge gathering itself to create community. And that is my hope that this will happen.
Excellent. Hannah?
So I was born in 1998, and I'm the oldest, I think, from this Ipečko Trnava region. And my colleagues are from younger age, and we're struggling sometimes with even we professionals are struggling sometimes with understanding of the very little nuances and some bigger communication issues. And coming from the typical panel houses in Bratislava, I spent a lot of my time playing with kids in this banlieue. I don't know in English. That's yeah. I know that you are both French, so yeah, French speaking. So in these suburbs, we spent our time of teenage and it continued till my young adulthood. So I can relate to Steph's environment. Even it's a bit different because in my city and in Slovakia, the population in suburbs, it differs a little bit. You can find on that time very rich people over there still living in these panel houses, and at the same time people who are less advantaged to live at the same location. So and coming from an educated family, they really tried me to follow these all these goals and values we had at home, and pressed me to be the best, because if you're not the best, you'll not survive. And and I also was perceiving that my interests should be my goals, and and this was also the same thing, or the very similar to Una's life, that she really wanted to continue in acting, and I could relate easily to that. And concerning leaving Slovakia or leaving Romanian film, I think at least my peers, my generation, a lot of them, they were okay in that what they lived, and I knew a bunch of people who really wanted to move since they were 12 or something, for better conditions, for better work, for more liberal society, and also for better options of learning some languages, because we are, as the post-Soviet satellite republic or state, language skills of our teachers weren't that well in all Slovakia, I could say. So I spent some summers abroad in France, and then also moved to France for 2.5 years, and also almost stood there, but yeah, I didn't. And the reason, this is funny, because the reason was also the school system. It reminded me so much of choosing the school and making these calls for application forms and calls for admission. It was so stressful at the time, and it reminds me my stress watching the main characters living the same thing, and how they want to be somewhere and how they pursue their dreams. So, and I found also very similar traits, to have passion for something, and to be really entouré, I don't know how to say it in English, with people who have the same passion, because it's the normal thing in young adulthood, not to be really friend of a parent, but just live our lives with peers. It's from developmental point of view, the very, very crucial or biologically determined thing, behavior. So when I saw that they went to these activist marches, these uprisings, and I was really watching uprisings in Romania last year's, I felt some kind of going back to my times when we were protesting or demonstrating against neo-Nazism in Slovakia, what we can every year, much more like, yeah, it's coming back in waves, like those long sleeves and fashion from 60s. It's coming also with political. So I think this is very similar, that people are activists late then and right now, from my age. And to your second question, or what people should be keep in mind when it comes to better understanding of Gen Z. I think Gen Z is shaped by a structural change, and it has grown on digital saturation. So that means that some people were born with mobile phone in their hands. I had some wood to cut and some toys from Germany, maybe, which were very precious, and some Barbies, and that was it, you know. So it's very different comparing millennials to Gen Z, and to see the difference with upbringing and growing up. Also, I cannot imagine that Gen Z would be in some regions of Slovakia let until 7 p.m. Outdoors without some supervision right now. I don't know how it is in Romania, but maybe I wouldn't let my kids to be outside in these times. So even with a big dog or some, I don't know, some friends, teenage friends. So yeah, and there's the effect, we call it, one Czech psychologist call it effect of cold mother, that tablets and technologies and mobile phones, YouTube, and every digital song for kids is making this kind of technical nanny for the kids. So somehow in early age, kids are lacking the relationship or the deep relationship with parents. If it's excess to the maximum or to yeah, extreme. Like Ruxandra, you talked about global crisis and climate issues, and this Gen Z is really formed and living with such crises as COVID, wars, Russian aggression in Ukraine, and much more economic crisis. And it leads them to see the world, or it leads them to be much concerned about the world, and the fact that they are learning about it at school, and they are more sensibilized with these issues. I think it has repercussions on their adaptability and their understanding of the world and their feeling of stability. I should continue much more, but I'll make it short. When it comes to liberal thinking, it can also lead to clash with boomer generation, which was brought up with more traditional and more, I would say, categorical or religious or traditional conservative values. And I don't see much understanding of fluid identity from older generations to Gen Z. And even I had some really questions on how flexible the identity could be. And I learned that it could, and it's very various, and I just have to keep up with it and observe it. Young people from Gen Z are often expressed by digital content, and they have their physical self, and then they have their online self, which could be really different to the physical one. So for me, this is also, I think this is very tough for them sometimes to have more roles, to play more roles. And to sum it up, I had the last point. I feel the lack of the trust to some traditional authorities. Young kids, or we call it young kids, like 15, 16-year-old people coming to our low threshold center. They're addressing to us with lack of respect of teachers, as Una said 2 times on this speech. Lack of respect by some authorities, by society. Their opinion is not that valued as they wish it would be. And when they work, we work with such groups of teens, they prefer to have this peer-to-peer contact and this trust-based approach, I would say. So we're not looking at them from some upper point or from some superior position. And in social work and in psychology, I never had this attitude, but it can, our roles and our understanding of some social roles and some our issues, our maybe upbringing could lead us also as professionals to some kind of this overview, but it's not really working with them, and we'll never get into cooperation if we act like this. Yeah.
We talked about what sets Gen Z apart from millennials and boomers and other generations. And you said that you also did a documentary about millennials. But I think that, or I imagine that when you decided to embark on a journey like this to present a generation that you weren't a part of, maybe it could have felt a bit intimidating, or this was my feeling when I thought about this. And I wanted to ask you if you had any fears or doubts about how the protagonists would see themselves in the film, or about how the Gen Z audience, the so-called Zoomers, might react to it.
Well, I didn't think about it like that. Like I knew there's a story to tell, and I was just like, I was really genuinely interested in interacting with a generation that is not mine, and that I access mainly through popular culture. I'm a big consumer of teen content, so that didn't feel at all unnatural to me to actually go and talk to teenagers. But of course, there's a completely different dynamic when you come and you say, okay, I want to do a documentary about your life, and I want to enter your intimate space. And for me, like, more than talking to a different generation, I think the challenge was to
access people and to understand those people's perspectives and to inhabit that space that is their lives. Okay, they were Gen Zs, and maybe we didn't have the same language, or of course there was a 20-year gap between us. But the challenge was to establish a relationship, one that is based on honesty and on sharing. And I was more focused on that. How can I actually build something and convince them that it's my place to be there in their lives, you know? And because I was aware that there's a camera, and because I was aware that I'm the adult and they are the teenagers. I mean, we spent time together from when they were 16 till they were 20, 21. And I thought, okay, so I'm the observer and I come with a certain baggage. There's a lack of balance in our power relationship because, first of all, I'm an adult. Second, I come with a camera. Third, I want something from you. So I thought, let's balance it a little. And so from the very beginning, I said, okay, I'm gonna give you cameras. And where you don't want us, where you feel like we're intruding, where you feel like you would like to show your own perspective upon your life, you have that tool. So it felt like always, and especially after COVID, actually, it felt like we're doing something together. And I tried to access whichever tool I had to build that togetherness. And then, like, I remember, I mean, COVID was weird for all of us, but of course, I thought, okay, I'm filming with 3 teenagers. They were 17 at that point. That don't yet know me. We were filming for almost a year, but I didn't feel like I'm completely in their lives. And now we have to stop filming for half a year, or I don't know, like for an indefinite period of time. They will definitely drop out. If not all of them, at least one of them. And it was such a pleasant shock to me to see that they stuck to it, and we got out of it like I don't know. I had this family feeling, so the dynamic completely changed. And after that period of the lockdown where we couldn't film, we restarted uh, the process, and it felt like, okay, we want to do this together, and we want to show it, okay, with each of us, with the tools we have, we want to show it to a wider audience. We don't know how they will look at what we built, but we definitely have something genuine and something authentic and something raw that we want to share. Yeah, I'm very passionate about the process because it was very fulfilling for me to see exactly this. I mean, of course you're intimidated. They were intimidated. I was, but it was more about the construction of it than those barriers that we put in our heads. I can't do this because I don't belong. I will not understand them because they will not want to share. I think like in all relationships, if you're ready to listen and if you're ready to share, because it's a mutual process, in the end you're going to reach something that is valuable, and you're going to build something that is not just scratching the surface of what Gen Z is. Of course, I mean, I know that there are a lot of cliches and also this discourse against the country, but I feel like those have to be touched upon to see that it's a repetitive circle of history. But then, like, when you get to the individual parts and when you get to the specificities, I hope we check those. We have those check marks as well. Yeah.
Because you also mentioned that there are some things that maybe repeat or are some cliches in every generation. How did you decide to tell their story specifically? I'm referring to Habet, Una, Steph. Was there a process behind this decision, maybe some research or studies? Or was it more a matter of a personal observation and intuition?
Well, I mean, I am a sociologist, and I started the project with this idea that it's a constant thing in Romania to say, well, Romanian society is not good, and I don't want to be here. And at that point, I also read a study, it was 2018. It was a study about youth migration in Romania, and the intention of living was at around 80%. And like more than 20%, I think 24, of the people between 18 and 29 were actually leaving the country. And I was like, that's huge. I mean, 80% of the people saying they don't want to be there, that's very problematic. And a quarter of the young people are leaving, that's another problematic phenomenon. It was 3 years after I came back from France. I lived in France for 7 years with the idea when I left, I said I will never come back. I don't wanna grow up in Romania. I don't wanna do my work in Romania. So I had these unanswered questions, and I went and we did actually, I mean, a research. We searched for people. I think we filmed with 14 teenagers from all over Romania. It was really important to me to have them from different social backgrounds, to see, I mean, they are very compatible in what they want, but the social conditions are different. And in the end, I decided that I want to work with Una, with Stefania, and with Abed, because it's like this perfect mix, I thought, between personal chemistry. And if you want to do this long-term, in-depth process, you need to feel like I need to feel, and they needed to feel like we can work together for a long, long time, and we can bond. But also it was the power and the uniqueness of their personalities, and also the depth of their stories. I thought like they can offer me all that, and I pretty much fell in love with all of them in different ways. And I thought they are bringing like unique stories, but also unique energies that are compatible and that I can play with. I mean, at the beginning, the plan was to do a mini series. So I wanted to have more time with them, and I wanted to nuance more. In the end, we had to do it like this. We had to do it a feature length. So I cut a bit of the complexities, but it was really important to have them with their different energies, different backgrounds, and same ideals, and very active. I mean, all three of them, they were really active in what they were doing. They were trying to change something, to show something. So yeah, so that's why Huna, Habet, and Stefania. And I feel like, I mean, of course, I don't have a representative study because it's not a study, it's a feeling, it's a story. But I feel they represent, and people, different audiences can connect to each of them in different ways. And that keeps also the audience engaged. Yeah.
I also related a lot to the feeling of wanting to leave the country. That was in all three of them.
Yes.
And I also wanted to ask you, Hannah, because you work close with young people, especially teenagers in Slovakia. Did you notice any parallels between the experiences or challenges of the protagonists in Imaginary Youth and the young people you work with in Slovakia?
Yeah, thank you very much for Ruxandra for firstly, thank you very much for presenting or letting Una, Stefan, and Abed speak their own life. because I was fully in with the document. And it's the same thing as we do in our practice, that really the first thing that I do in crisis intervention or in some consulting is to create relationship, not like the romantic relationship, the professional relationship, which consists of me trying to understand and asking, not trying to imagine or to guess or to have some presumptions what this diagnosis or what this person thinks, just to observe, just to try to understand their lives, their choices, their values, their needs. And what I can see in people I'm working with is that they are very confused of current politics in Slovakia. They have really strong feelings about climate crisis, ecological various ecological disasters and ecological questions. They are very concerned of the war because it's just behind our border, and because we have friends from Ukraine in here, multiple friends, also teenagers from Ukraine come to our club. So we call it club. It's low threshold center, but just for explanation. And we're working with communities that really ask questions, question authorities, and ask for better life, for some more democratic state. So I think this topic that some things in society should be better or different, this was really the same, and I found it really reasonable. And sometimes in the end of the document, there was this changement or changes of what their paths would be in the future of those people, their maybe positions or attitudes change to some stuff. And it's very typical also with our clients that they're not only fluid in these identities, but they also a lot of time and very often they don't know what they feel. Sometimes they cannot describe their feelings because they weren't taught to. Some of them, they can lead a lecture of being assertive or not being burned out. And that's true. We went to the school to have some prevention activities on stress. And I think the half of the workshop could be led easily by them because they already knew. They're so self-aware and so aware of this topic of mental issues and mental health. And often very experienced. Often they have their own psychologist, therapist, or counselor. And and this was a bit similar when I saw reflection of those actors that really or youngsters that they really reflected their feelings. And for me, this is really precious. I experience also in my practice very controlling parents and very anxious parents. And somehow it was also present in the document in some way. I experience the control up to the very most extreme you can imagine. And then also from my experience, there is such a liberty in upbringing on the other way, which don't set really boundaries. There is strong connection between youngsters and their parents. And at the same time, there could be some issues with, I could say, boundaries, limits, maybe, like co-living and cohabitation. I also saw very motivated youth planning to leave. And in our groups and counseling, we have also many people who, with current political situation, plan to leave, even to Czech Republic or somewhere else, because they are not really okay with the communication of authorities, firstly, because it's very aggressive and it's getting even worse, with some lies. I can say openly lies from the people who are there leading the system. Then they also want some bigger salaries and better options maybe for studying, because our university really changed a lot. When I went to university last year, I was one of regional universities. I was really surprised, just the environment and the topics and the workshops and possibilities. I was learning in my faculty how the sun should shine on pupils, so it's hygienic for the studies. And yeah, and it was really like the classical. We also had some very open-minded professors and really some kind of lights in the darkness, but still, this really changed. So I'm really happy for that. And still, our students' lack of options to combine some branches, some how to say, studying programs, and we have this saying, and I'm not being negative, just this is funny for me, that nothing is possible and we'll never do this, you know? So sometimes the attitude of authorities is like that. I cannot change the date of the exam. I cannot. And my youngsters, they bring it to the counseling, that they are so surprised that there's not such flexibility and humanity still somewhere. So the last thing coming to my mind is lack of respect of I already was talking about teacher and pupil relationship. We also we give these 3 questions when we go to preventive workshops to schools, and what should we change, what should be done to feel so that your class is feeling better in the school. And often they say we don't need classy tables and new windows or whatever, even if they do sometimes. We would like to have a 30 minutes outdoors in between the school, in the school garden, but it's not possible, because there should be one person who is guarding those people, and the same person who is guarding them inside. But outdoors, it's kind of more dangerous for the school, so it's not possible and will never be possible. That's the attitude of the school till now, of one school. They need to be heard, and they need the respect. Really respect on a human level, that nobody's exercising with them, like stand up 5 times because you were shouting 2 minutes after the ringing of the bell of the class. And I would say I have this expression in Slovak language, exercising somebody's authority on somebody. So yeah.
No, I
So
totally agree.
for me,
sorry, you are
You can go on,
sorry.
Ruxandra.
No, like Hannah's answer made me think about my students. Like I'm teaching for 3 years now at the Faculty of Journalism, and I every time I have a new group of students, I'm starting with asking them the question of how do they feel about the world and how do they feel living in this world. And we had like very interesting therapy sessions. Like that's how they feel. Like we're doing therapy sessions, and I told them, well, if we're gonna learn some concepts, we first need to learn of each other, because what I can teach you is the concepts are on a secondary layer if we do not get each other as persons. And it works really, really well to connect and to understand that I'm not there to sanction them, but I'm there to, again, to share this process of sharing, where we are no longer in this type of configuration where we teach bottom down. Yeah, I feel like, well, we were talking last week, I'm teaching storytelling, and I said, well, the theories I have and I can share with you are like 20 years old, and we did this connection between storytelling, scrolling, and brain rot to see how the type of storytelling changed. I mean, we need to be right here, right now, if we want to engage pupils, students, whomever. And that's important in a documentary, that's important in school, and that's important in the university, to understand that it's much more, and the society needs much more of this sharing and this balanced relationship between a director and protagonists, or a teacher and its pupils. And they will be more open. And like my experience is that my students, they come 95%, they come to all my classes and seminars. And they come prepared to engage in conversation, to engage in debate. So, yeah. I thought Hannah's thoughts were really nice in this direction, where you get mainly a hostile political environment and an exacting school environment, but it also depends on us when we have the tools to change the paradigm again.
I was also thinking this, and maybe the fact that sometimes older generations don't really take the time to understand the young generations, and they are just going on with the certain cliches that are pushed by the media, that they don't want to work. They are just
Yeah.
too obsessed with mental health, for example, because also Hannah said that they are super self-aware. And I was also wanted to ask you this, because many older people like to say things like, everyone has depression now, everyone is anxious these days, and they are referring to young people. And I've heard this from several friends of mine who heard this from their parents. And I personally don't think that it's accurate, but it does make me wonder, how do we explain why mental health is such a focus for Gen Z, and why does it feel so central for this generation? You can both answer if you want. And
I think it relates to what I was saying from the beginning, through the time you have to establish your identity outside social media. The fact that you need to perform all the time your identity somehow outside of yourself, that there is this techno stress, a continuous techno stress. But Hannah was saying that you have devices as nannies, as educators. So of course this creates a lot of pressure, and you have a permanent pressure to perform, a daily, like many times a day pressure to perform, which of course has effects on your identity. I mean, you are in a continuous process of questioning your identity. How do I look in front of the camera? What will I say now? How's my life today? What's the novelty compared to yesterday? So it's like a continuous pressure to be someone better than the day before, which is practically impossible. We didn't have that pressure. I didn't grow up with a phone that I was looking in and what I was checking. Am I beautiful today? Am I fulfilling standards of beauty, of intelligence, of whatever, of discourse? I mean, imagine how it is for everybody, not only for the introverted, but people that need to be out there. They have to. There is this pressure to put yourself out there, and that creates, of course, negative effects, anxiety, depression. But I don't feel it's only a thing for Gen Z. I think it's also for millennials. We are also technically savvy, and we also pretty much wake up and go to sleep with a phone or a device in our hands. It's more about how society is configured in this period of time. And it affects more Gen Z because we had time to establish who we are before all this craziness with technology, social media, phones, apps, whatever. Yeah, but I think it's also useful to have that conversation. I mean, we were suffering in quiet. Now you have tools to understand what's going on and find solution to solve it. And yeah, it's generalized, but I don't think it's a label. I think it's a discussion that has to be like emphasized upon and carried out also every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I can connect to that absolutely. That depression or this waving with psychological terms just to express the gap in between the behavior we want from youngsters and we wish to be happening. It's really it should be debate. It should be more based on understanding. And I often listen from teachers in schools that who really come to our to consultation, to counseling, and they ask, how should I behave to understand when they are so weak, when they are also depressed, when they... So we really start with understanding what is happening to young people they work with, that there's a big emotional response for what is happening in the world, and that response, because they are teaching them to be aware of social of democratic changes, of values, and it's absolutely normal. It's something that is so natural and so normal, and they forgot about it. So we try to reconnect those two poles, and we try not to make war of arguments of it, but just to the profound understanding of it. And living in a constant change and pressure leads naturally to uncertainty. And with this uncertainty, people could be hopeless, people could feel depressed, people could have depression episodes. And when in other times we didn't talk about it maybe so much, and maybe coping strategy was to push it somewhere else, to forget it, to overcome it with maladaptive strategies as drinking, alcohol, whatever, which is still present. Nowadays, young people tend to more open the topics, which could be both very healing for the older generation and very, very challenging at the same time. Because when you were born in a generation which don't really, which suppress trauma, which don't really open up some topics. It's taboo, we don't talk about it, you know. So it's really hard for them to even open the topic in such a wide context, and they don't feel safe to open some boxes. So it could
Exactly,
be
because
hard to
it's traumatic. It's traumatic for the older generations, and to have the pressure that the younger generation is actually trying to open those boxes and go to those corners that you were trying to, close forever.
avoid.
Yeah.
And my friend, he has this joke, and because we're talking about this, and he said that understanding Gen Z is like, or other generations, the younger generations, because I think it's the same thing. Older generation could see in a different way the younger generation, and there could be some tension and some misunderstanding or some questions. It's very natural. It's still repeating in some cycles. And he said it's like understanding the AdBlue box on petrol stations. For me, it was new thing because I didn't know that some additive should be added to my car to serve properly. But then I learned that there is a special place for it. And my first reaction was like, why it should be so complicated? Why there should be something more? And then I understood that the new things don't just in my profession, I understand finally that it doesn't have to come with criticism or with a fear. They should be understood in context, and also opening some topics. It doesn't have to be led in a very harmful way. I have experienced that young people, even 11-year-old in our counseling center, has really shaped discussion with her mother in a very good way, that the mother felt understood and loved even when she wasn't behaving in her best way, or there was this problem. So the attitude of younger generation was very healing for her, and she first she was in she had some kind of barricade, and she wouldn't like to open up and what kids should say to her, and she was really very skeptic about this all conversation. She let her child to be to sit with psychologist, and it should be repaired, not her or not their relationship. But then we let it as a mediation, as a conversation, and last 2 times I was really surprised, and I was really happy for this effect of opening up and thanking the child, giving the space also for the mother to open up the issue in a very, very safe way and very lovable way.
Ruxandra, throughout the film, what I found myself coming back to was this major theme of class. I guess you mentioned it briefly that they come from different social backgrounds. I refer here to Una, Habet, and Steph. And I see that even though they live, for example, Habet and Una, they live in the same city in Bucharest, they are having different lives or different opportunities and different lives. Still, we kind of see that their dreams or aspirations are somehow similar. At one point, we hear Habet, who also wants to study abroad, and he talks that with Una. But when it comes to the pandemic, I feel like it really showed their differences in their upbringing and their opportunities. You kind of start to see it better. And I was wondering if this was something you intended to highlight from the very beginning, or did it emerge organically during filming?
I mean, it was my intention to show that there are class differences and to choose people from different social environments. But I was hoping that we will break the cliche, and that Habet, for example, will get out of his habitus. Unfortunately, again, I need to refer to to Bourdieu and to his theories, we see that yes, we have persistent social structures, the structures of class, and you see them even more in during and after the pandemic, where society is reconfiguring itself, and it replaces individuals in their class. So yes, I was very much aware of this idea, and I wanted to go in depth with social conditions, social background, socialization, the role of family, and the limitations that a neighborhood gives. It confines you pretty much in Habet's case. The meritocratic aspect of Stefania's trajectory, and this impression that Una gave me, even though we are talking also there about financial issues and such, but the capital cultural with which she comes, the socialization she got through her parents, that pretty much sets the idea that she has unlimited opportunities. And I wanted to play with that, with the limitations and the unlimited opportunities that you have, like physically, but also mentally. What you think you can get from your position in society, what aspirations you might have. And it was lovely at the beginning, and for a period with Habet, we see that he doesn't have these limitations when it comes to what he wants for himself, that he can dream big. And I hope that he can dream big till the end. But the context proved us otherwise, and it proved us that, again, class is stronger than individuals' desires. Yeah.
Yeah, I found it really fascinating, and I think that their stories really managed to show that till the end. I also wanted to touch upon the fact that a lot has changed since the documentary was filmed, or since 2020. I feel like it's still immediate and personal, but at the same time, given all the technological advancements, it also feels a bit far away. For example, when I was preparing for this talk, I was just checking the news, and just last week, the BBC reported that ChatGPT advised a young woman to commit suicide, and OpenAI is now facing multiple lawsuits claiming that the platform has driven people to harm themselves. And how do you both see these kind of digital realities and the risks and pressures of AI and online platforms shaping the mental health and experiences of Gen Z and maybe future generations, Gen Alpha, who is already on TikTok and posting?
I think we have a special place in Excel table for AI relationships, for statistics, and for phenomena of the internet. There is a special also a special window where we describe how with what topics the client addresses to us concerning cyberbullying, cyber grooming, and these phenomena, trends, brain rot, TikToks, doom scrolling, and etc. We experience that technology is a very good servant and a bad lord, we sing. I don't know if you say the same, you have the same proverb. But when in crisis, we try to lead people to rely on on professionals that they have their 20 years of practice, because the fourth generation of AI, there was this test that one man lost his job and he wrote to the AI that I lost my job, find me the nearest le pont, nearest bridge, and it found the nearest bridge without understanding the context that he wants to jump from the bridge. So, and he wants to commit a suicide. So I think even if this is changed, and even if our clients, when they address to AI with some problems, even if it's the crisis intervention, it leads them to or our site or other helplines which are provided in Slovakia, hopefully. But the problem with AI is that it will tell you what you wish to hear, and that's it. It can also play partner, but when it refreshes the setting of a partner. So it can lead also to a disappointment and crisis with some people. So yeah, for me, it's still the good old counseling in a person, and people could sense the other person and have years of experience and can connect much more from the working field as AI can, for sure. So very dangerous, and using with moderation, I would say.
Yeah, I would go in the same direction of going back to basics, maybe not counseling, but just simple, pure human interaction that is lacking. And I mean, I hear more and more. I have my students, they are all telling me we're lonely, we lack this feeling of community. So what we need is somehow to rebuild small communities, like smaller than bigger, but to rebuild this tissue of trust between individuals that with the AI, with the pandemic and the lockdown, with us being continuously behind screens is lacking. And the only way to fight it is to go back to traditional interpersonal interaction and hope for micro change. I mean, from our positions, I don't think we can change more than one person's well-being, or I mean 1 to 10 to 20, but that's those are our limitations. But just go with this hope that if we're open enough and if we're honest enough, we will manage to recreate trust and a brighter perspective of what our future will hold, even in this environment with so many technological pressures and tensions.
Yeah, I think this is the general feeling, and I also have this feeling that we're super lonely, and my generation is super lonely, and everyone is individualistic. And even if you meet with your friends, then you go home and you have this relationship via your phones. Mostly this happens online. I mean, you don't spend as much time with your friends as you used to. Everything happens online, and that makes you even lonelier, I think. Or that's what I've realized lately. And I think that Ruxandra, you also mentioned hope. So even though we talked about some maybe I would say not so hopeful subjects like the pandemic, also the rise of AI, and maybe loneliness. After watching this documentary and having this conversation, it's hard not to think about the future. I mean, the future of Gen Z, maybe the future of next generations. And even if some days it feels darker than ever, I think it's really important for us not to lose our hope. So maybe if you have something that gave you hope from this film, from this documentary, working on it, but also watching it, or more personally, where do you find hope these days? I think this will be great if you can share.
Nobody wants
Ruxandra,
to.
Hana,
Nobody wants to start
whoever
hoping.
wants.
Well, I feel. I mean, for me, imaginary youth came with a lot of happiness. It was also what's happening in it and what happened in my life around it. There were a lot of changes and a lot of traumas as well. And the whole process happened in a very insecure environment. But what I got from it was a lot of happiness. And like that's what I hope that people will take out of seeing it, to understand that daily life, it's a dose of happiness and a dose of stress at the same time, and that they come together, and you need to enjoy it, enjoy the happy moments when they come, and to reflect upon the less happy as well when they come. So I think processes, I mean, for me personally, this is very fulfilling, to just put myself out there, if it's a documentary, if it's teaching, if it's whichever other project I'm doing, to just put myself out there and start hoping that we will build something. We don't know exactly what, because also, again, society doesn't give us so many certainties. But just the fact that I'm willing to get out of my comfort zone and go out there in an environment that I don't know, whichever that might be, and start discovering it, I think this is a chance for hope for all of us. Just do it, you know. It's as simple as that. If you less time for reflection maybe, and more time for action as well. It's we need to fight against this tendency and the environment that is making us more and more depressed and going back inside ourselves, and like just go and do stuff.
Hana?
I'm completely on the same ship. I mean, every shift or service in a club, every movement I saw in a film, it's really fulfilling. I mean, it's energy. It's even if it's bad or good or every kind of emotion, it's a fuel. It's life. It's process. It's a continuous process. And for me, it's like those footages with camera when policemen came after people. There's so much attitude and energy, and it's so real. I mean, it's very good to be, and that's why I love this work. I couldn't be somewhere locked in some ambulance and just making prescriptions. It's to be there, to be present, to live the life with young people as their guide, maybe as just people moving around and being there if something happens, or if nothing happens, just be there and observe them. And for me, it's really, I was admiring the scene when they trained at the theater together, and there was such a strong connection in between of them. There was such a strong political idea of living, and it was so jumping to my eyes. So it was so obvious and so strong just by watching it, just by acting, that I cannot even describe it in words. It was so I really admire how you catched, or how you caught emotion from that, what they were living. And for me, this is it. I mean, I'm observing all my work, and I'm just being there and helping if I can. We're going also to outdoor locations to really try to save people when they want to finish with their life. And this energy of being able to be there as a human being. I'm not going there with all my theories from psychology now. It's just being there with somebody who is suffering or who has some tough times, and asking how he sees the situation. So so just the presence and living with those young people, and be really curious on their opinion, because they can teach us so much with their attitude. And last thing I wanted to say, and I wrote it yesterday, it's really nice that the sun rises again every day. So for me, this is it's every day another story, and we can create it our way. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
it's too
too.
bad the documentaries take like years to happen, but yes, we can share those stories when they come.
Yeah, and they're important. Even if it takes a longer period, at the end, I feel like they can bring so much. And also, I wanna add to what Hannah said, because I saw a TikTok the last days, and it was on the same page. It said, "As long as you're alive, you can start again and again and again." And I feel like, yeah, this is something that can bring hope. I can't believe I quoted a TikTok on on a conversation, but it happens. So yeah. And thank you so much to both of you for your work, for being here today and talking on the documentary. I know there were lots of themes that maybe we didn't have time to cover, but I think it's an important piece of the puzzle, as I said, for Gen Z in Romania that was really missing when we are trying to understand them. And I really hope everyone will look at this documentary and try to understand this generation more, because I feel like it's also connected, as Hannah said, with other countries and uh, teenagers or maybe young people in other countries as well, because being online, for example, doesn't have any borders. You can connect with people, there are similarities. So thanks a lot. And yeah, I hope we get to see each other again in other settings.
Yeah, thank you. And like, I really feel like one of the purpose of the movie is achieved every time we have a debate and we connect and we try to understand better what's happening with us, with other generations around us. So thank you for that. And thank you, Hannah, for sharing your perspectives and your experiences. And that's why we're here for, to enrich and share.
Thank you both for making this discussion. And Ruxandra, I would love to see more of your stuff. I mean, frankly, it makes me curious even more. And thank you very much for a great experience last night, because I really watched it a few times, few sequences, and I really had a very good time with it. And hope to use it in my work, if you allow, maybe for better reflection and purposes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.